It's only been 2 days since one of the most highly anticipated elections of our lifetime, but with everything that's happened since, it's about the farthest thing from many American minds. This morning we woke up to the news that yet another gunman walked into yet another crowded venue and started shooting, ultimately killing 12 people. This time it was in a bar in Thousand Oaks, California. Less than 2 weeks ago, it was 11 people murdered at a synagogue in Pittsburgh. And time after time we hear stories like these from those who lived through it all.
I knew it was bullets. I knew it was shots fired. A lot of the young people, they thought it was not real.
All I heard was the gunshots, and that's not a sound that you ever want to hear in a crowded place where it's not supposed to be happening.
No, it's not. And when it happens in a place that is regularly ranked among the safest cities in America, you have to know there's a problem. Or do you? We also learned today that special counsel Robert Mueller's team has started writing its final report, according to CNN. And as we mentioned last night, that investigation is now being overseen by Trump's pick as interim Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, a man who wrote in a CNN op-ed last year that if Mueller didn't limit his probe, it would, quote, raise serious concerns that the special counsel's investigation was a mere witch hunt. Sound familiar? The Washington Post is also reporting Whitaker has no intention of recusing himself from that investigation, despite previous statements like the one I just mentioned. And by the way, they say people close to him don't believe he would approve a Mueller subpoena of the president either. So where does this all leave us? I'm joined by Virginia Buckingham, former Massport CEO and chief of staff for two governors, Weldon Cellucci. Ginny, it's good to see you.
You too.
Michael Curry is former president of the Boston NAACP, now chair of the National NAACP Advocacy and Policy Committee. Michael, it's good to see you too.
Good to be here.
Let me start with you, if I can. When you fire a man who agrees with you on every single issue about, except one, the legitimacy and work of a special counsel, and you replace him with one with a history of criticizing the special counsel, including the legitimacy of the office to begin with. Is that not the classic definition of obstruction of justice, or is it not?
It is, and I'm wondering what's taking so many so long to get to that. I mean, ultimately, if you look at the weight of the issues that Jeff Sessions champions for the president, immigration, criminal justice, he would get A's across the board in terms of this administration and what it wants out of the Justice Department. But this one significant issue, which is the risk that it poses to the Trump administration in terms of Russian tampering and so forth, is the reason that he got fired.
By the way, here's a little bit of Matthew Whitaker 2 times on CNN just last year in 2017. Here he is.
I can see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces the budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt. There is a red line. There is a very specific scope to this investigation, and anything that is outside of Russian coordination or the 2016 campaign would be outside of the scope of that investigation.
And by the way, those are just 2 of many comments he made critical of the investigation. Isn't it, I mean, pretty close to classic obstruction of justice? You get rid of somebody who isn't involved, recused himself, and you put in place somebody who's wildly critical of the underlying investigation, no?
Perhaps if it had been done much earlier. So if it's true, as you just said, that the Mueller investigation is coming to a close and he's writing his final report, the train has way left the station, and then this all becomes political, which it already is, and the House has now flipped in. The impeachment proceedings may start, the Senate's going to do what the Senate's going to do, and everyone's going to believe what they believe, just like they do today.
Speaking of it being political, Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, was on a radio show today, and she said, you know, based upon all the Republicans who stood up, including Mitch McConnell months ago, and said, no one's going to tamper with Bob Mueller, no one's going to tamper. She assumed there should be bipartisan support for legislation that ensures that Bob Mueller can continue and finish his work. Should Republicans not support that thing to let the American people know, whether it's Whitaker or not, this will be an independent, honest inquiry?
She's an unfortunate sponsor and vehicle for that message because she's running for president. So it automatically is seen suspiciously and not as an honest broker.
But isn't it the right message? Let's assume it didn't come from her. Is she not right that there should not be bipartisan support for some legislative protection for Mueller in this kind of climate?
Well, why does there have to be protection? There already is a special counsel appointed. He's about to file his report. I don't think anyone needs to protect Bob Mueller.
Does he need protection?
He does. I mean, ultimately, and it's been said by Whitaker himself, it's about trying to block whatever comes out of this report. In fact, block the process of issuing the report, but block whatever comes out of it. This president has huge latitude to obstruct what comes out of this report and what the findings are. And for that reason, I think that Senator Warren is really saying what many of us believe, that the Republicans and Democrats should come together to protect them.
And by the way, the Washington Post said today, quoting a bunch of legal experts, that the Attorney General, the interim Attorney General, who now supervises this instead of Rod Rosenstein, has the power to never release the report, keep it confidential, redact whatever he deems to be inappropriate for public view, if there's any view at all. That doesn't increase the feeling that maybe Mueller does need some protection?
So perhaps he has the power. He does not have the political ability to actually do that. And I believe that the pressure that's going to come to bear on putting this out there, and if Bob Mueller can't get it out one way, he'll get it out another.
Do you worry about it? The president said yesterday, that unending press conference, that there was investigation fatigue. Basically trying to, they have nothing, zero, he said, even though there have been a ton of indictments, including his former campaign chair, but he didn't mention it. I happen to agree with the president, unfortunately, not because I don't think this is important and whatever Mueller, based on his history, comes up with should be respected by the American people. I worry the American people are tired, no matter what kind of bill of particulars there is. It's going to be either fake news or let's move on to the economy. Do you worry about that?
I don't worry about it because it's true. You can't worry about something that's absolutely true. No, but it's the state of media that we live in, that everything's histrionic. There's no calm look objectively at anything anymore.
But isn't that in part because the president has been trashing this guy and his work virtually nonstop? Do you worry about this?
It's a tactic. I mean, it just amazes me that we don't see what the strategy is here. Attack the report throughout the whole process, and then we all get tired of the report. We haven't even seen the report yet. So Democrats, Republicans, we're all saying, okay, when is this report coming out, and who can trust what's in it?
And
that was his goal
if a Democrat was in the
place.
same position like Bill Clinton was several years ago, they'd do the same thing.
And
that's
I would
called
criticize
politics.
the same way. So politics can be what it is, but the reality is we want the truth. Some of us want the truth.
So we're talking about action. I woke up today, like you did, to find out that, there are another dozen people dead in yet another mass shooting. And by the way, I didn't even list them all at the top of the show because it would take too long. Yes, it is true the gun was obtained legally by the shooter. And yes, it is true that .45 was not an assault weapon. But I have to say, I was almost quaking today. I don't mean to be overly dramatic. I mean, you were head of Massport during 9/11. Republicans and Democrats, we got to do something. We're not 100% sure what it's got to be. There seems to be no sense of urgency. And there seems to be a sense, at least to me, that it's okay to do nothing, even though common sense suggests nothing would allow more Parklands, more Las Vegases, and more Californias. Am I wrong in that regard?
So David Hogg, who leads the Parkland students, did something this year that if we did more of, maybe we could solve this problem.
Which is what?
He walked up to an NRA leader who was protesting one of his rallies, and they talked, and they had a conversation, and they tried to come to some common understanding. If we did more of that, instead of immediately going to it's guns, this guy had PTSD that just committed this horrific murder that was untreated. We have to have a holistic conversation, and everyone has to be willing to come to the table.
But, as much as I admire Hogg and the NRA member, I'm not familiar with that had that conversation, I vote for people to represent me, to create an environment in which my family and I are safe, so they can keep talking. I want some, and by the way, I don't know what the right action is, and maybe nothing could have prevented this guy or Vegas, but something has to be done about something, does it not?
What's frustrating is I don't think there's anyone, especially on the Democratic side, just saying it's only guns, right? It is mental health. It is a whole host of reasons.
So then meet on mental health and come up with something.
It's the 5150s. In this case, it may have been involved with the putting of this man in an institution, and apparently it was a prior incident with him. It is also
5150 is the state law that allows putting someone in some protective care in California. Yeah.
So it's a mental health piece. It is also universal background checks. It's stopping the bump stocks.
Which there is a frustration. They have all of those laws in California.
So again, it's about the nation and about the incidents that we're seeing across the nation, and they're a mixed bag. There's sometimes mental health, with legal access to a gun, there's sometimes a misuse or a purchase of guns that was not legal. Let's get to all of it.
Okay, look, I hate guns, but until we're willing to talk about everything and not just demonize legal gun owners, we're not going to have a solution.
think
I want to
anyone's
demonize legislators who decide that it's okay to
They
not
don't think
do
it's
anything.
okay.
But haven't they made that decision?
Because no one just has determined what should be done.
So meet and figure it out?
And I'm demonizing bump stocks. I'm demonizing automatic weapons that are on our streets. And whether it's a mass shooting or the streets of Chicago and Roxbury, we got to do something. And it has to be that holistic approach you talked about.
Absolutely.
And we cannot get caught in our little corners around politics and say, okay, I don't want to do anything around the Second Amendment and I don't want to jeopardize access to guns. The reality is automatic weapons do not belong on our streets in the hands of people who do not.
We should lock you two in a room and I'd feel a little bit better. Jenny Buckingham, it's good to see you.
You too.
Michael Carey.
Thank
I hope
you.
people listen. Thank you so much.